Welcome everybody to I the Serpent Tarot for episode 2 in the Pick a Card reading series that is all about you and the houses of an astrology chart. So if you are familiar already with this series, then you'll know that this is about looking at each house of an astrology chart, which is ruled by a particular sign, and that sign gives a flavour to the house of the chart about what aspect of your life is being portrayed, the energies, the planets that are within this particular house, how that connects to other houses and so forth, to give a sense about the drives, the blueprint of your life that's in your natal chart. And today's episode is episode 2, so it's the second house, which is the house ruled by Taurus. And so it's all about our values, our material aspects, our possessions, wealth creation potentially, our love of life, our sensual and sort of more material pleasures, and what we care about. It's also about our self-esteem. And what I will do in this video as part of the introduction is talk a bit about how those energies are going to be looked at in this pick a card reading, like what I'm going to focus on and why. But as I did in the first house episode, which if you haven't seen it and you enjoy this one, you might want to check out. I'll be doing one of these a month till we get through the whole 12 houses. I will also spend some time for those who know their astrology chart but are not an astrologer, or astrologers by all means are welcome to hang around for this one and even comment in the comments with further information if you want to share. But it's mainly for people who know your astrology chart, but maybe you've had it done or you've gone to one of the sites where you can have it generated and you know your birth date, birthplace and birth time, because it's important to know your birth time to know which house is where in your particular chart. So it's not which house is where, which sign is in each house in your particular chart, because knowing that, the extra information I'm going to talk about may add some other more personal detail to this reading beyond what you may intuitively get by choosing your particular pile. And I'll go a little bit into detail with that as well when we get to the pile selection point. But it'll be looking at what does it mean with different signs in the second house, because just because Taurus owns the second house on a kind of cosmic level, you may well have Scorpio in the second house or Virgo in the second house. And so the elements around that Taurian drive towards security, self-esteem, material possessions, material comfort has the overlay of whatever the other sign is. So it can be useful to know that, and it also can be useful to know if you have particular planets in a sign or in a house, sorry. And so that's also going to be covered. So I will go through at a very high level what the different signs in the second house mean and what it means to have planets in the second house. So if you're not interested in that, or you don't have access to that information, then by all means skip that piece of the introduction. So I'll have 2 parts of the introduction and then timestamps below and go straight to the pile choice. But if you are interested, then that adds a certain degree of extra flavour to it. But before you rush off, to give you a sense about the Taurus side of it, the overarching thing that in a sense applies to all of us, the aspects of the second house that in a sense we all have, and then it's how various other parts of our chart interact with that. As I said, it is Taurus's house. So it is ruled by those drives and ambitions that Taurus has. And as I say, it seems to me to be in both the elements of material comfort, material wealth, all the sort of sensual pleasures of life, all of that kind of thing, but also in things around your values and your ethics and how that connects to your self-esteem and how what you do might, and to manifest whatever you want, particularly materially or in your career or something like that, connects back to what your values are. So to me, when I do a 12-month reading for somebody using an astrology spread, I'd look a lot about what the second house tells me about internalized values. And I thought about that in the construction of this, and I thought the best way to really get to the level of depth that I want to do with this particular series is to firstly start with looking at the difference between intrinsic and extrinsic values or possessions or outcomes. So intrinsic values, and they're often the things that we believe in, we care about and so forth, are the things that in and of themselves give us a sense of satisfaction, self-esteem, a sense of achievement and so forth. Extrinsic are usually the rewards or the signs from the world that we've done something well, we're achieving something, we're progressing and so forth. And it seems to me that balance of intrinsic and extrinsic sums up the second house in many ways. And so that's how we're going to start the reading, and looking at the balance of those things for you. And then we're going to have a look at where you are in manifesting whatever that balance is at the moment, what advice Spirit has for you on that. And we'll focus in after that around what sort of personal characteristics do you have that can help you, or that you need to maybe control, modify, etc., to really get that balance right and get what you want out of life and to have that happy, self-actualized life. And we'll look at what is in your control and possibly outside of your control as well at the moment in the energies, and finalize with some astro chakra balance for you as well. So we're really going to be looking at, in great detail, I think, at the differences or the synergies for you between what you internally value, care about and just enjoy, and what it is that you're doing to manifest the lifestyle that you want in summary. So that's the nature of the reading. So I'm now going to go into the bit talking about by the signs, and as I say, signs and planets. And if you want to stay for that, stay for that. Otherwise, skip on to the pile choice part of the reading. Okay. So as I said, if you do know your astrology chart and you know what sign you have in the second house, then I'm just going to go quickly through what that tends to mean in terms of the energies of the second house, a bit about sort of careers and so forth, whether it sort of seems relevant for that particular sign in that house. And then, as I say, I'm going to just quickly tell you what having planets within that sign mean. But this is very high level, because the planets, for instance, whether or not they're going to ultimately do exactly what I'm saying will depend to some degree on where other planets are and the aspects and so forth. So it's a lot more complicated than just this, but it is just to give you some other signposts which might be helpful if you know that when you are both intuitively choosing your reading and also when you're hearing the reading, to make sure, one, that you've got the right reading, and two, that you're really understanding it on a more personal level. So if you have Aries in the second house, then you have a very strong material drive. You're very ambitious, you're very assertive in making dollars, and you can really link what you're confident about to making income. You can potentially need financial discipline. The sorts of careers and so forth that are likely to bring you wealth and manifestation are entrepreneurial, leadership roles, and anything in the competitive sort of realms. If you have Taurus there, which is of course the sign that owns the second house, you are looking for dollars and lifestyle to give you the life that you want. The dollars are about achieving a lifestyle, not an end in and of themselves. So you are likely to be very good at business and management, and could have great careers in things around finances or anything to do with the senses. If you have Gemini in the third house, it's all about the intellect. It's all about anything manifestation, material or whatever, is around how you view the world and how you communicate with the world. You could be very good at planning, budgeting, very adaptable when you need to be, may have more than one income source potentially, and any career in the areas of communication, details and planning are likely to manifest well for you. If you have Cancer in the second house, you really are all about home and family and those sorts of senses of security. You're an incredibly good saver. You will spend your money on the things that are around the home, the lifestyle, the family and so forth. Financial security matters to you. And you're likely to have careers that are helping others in some way, or have some connection to family and home. You may like working from home and so forth. With Leo in the second house, money is connected to your self-esteem. So there is both an intrinsic and extrinsic connection between money and what you earn and how you go in your career. You're likely to have very public careers in some way, to be seen. It could be something like acting or drama or comedy. Otherwise, there's something very performative in a way about how you go about manifesting and what you value in life. With Virgo in the second house, you're very planning, budget-minded, you're very structured, you know the details, but you will find financial concerns stressful, so it is important to you. The extrinsic part of this is going to be very important because it's going to be hard for you to focus on the intrinsic joy of something if you're worried about the financial details. So you're very much able to plan around that. And careers that would be good for you are around structure, planning sort of roles, anything detail oriented, also anything to do with health, because Virgo has a very strong health aspect to it. For Libra, everything's about balance, and so you like financial balance. And if you don't have that financial balance, you can feel a bit off kilter, something's wrong. You can have expensive taste. You're likely to have very good taste and very, very beautiful and charming in what you buy and how you design your home and all that kind of thing. Careers for you could be in beauty, fashion, events management, also things that are legal to do with the law, justice, politics, those sort of things as well too, because there would be a lot of intrinsic and extrinsic value for you in things being balanced and fair and social sort of causes. For Scorpio, you're very private about your money. You do not want people to necessarily know your income, etc. And money in itself isn't the goal. Your values are your wealth, really, like what you truly believe and what you're sort of seeing in life is what you really value. There's a lot around almost a forensic element to making money and establishing a lifestyle if you have Scorpio in the second house. So careers could be in science. They could be in all things to do with secrets, and also transformative areas and financial management, because Scorpio itself in the house that it rules, which is the 8th house, talks about other people's resources. So that kind of connection to the financial services industry. If you have Sagittarius in the second house, you're going to be very generous. And that's part of the intrinsic joy you have. What you make, what you establish, you share. You also like risks, and you think long term, but you want freedom within that. You want to be thinking in the way that allows you to establish something over time, but allows you to course correct when you want. Careers could be in things like travel. You could be a teacher, a writer, things that are around cultural areas. So those sort of things are likely to help you manifest the lifestyle that you want. If you have the second house, if you have Capricorn in the second house, you're very careful with money. You're very good at saving. And you will be very practical and likely to make money or build and manifest your lifestyle in careers such as politics, leadership, entrepreneurship. You could also be a career counsellor. You understand the powers and the structures of the world very well. If your second house is Aquarius, you have a view of dollars that is not particularly emotional. You're a bit detached from it. You find unique ways to make your money and to build your lifestyle. You're more into the new and the innovative than you are necessarily in winning the competitive race of keeping up with the neighbours or anything like that. You're very, very future oriented in how you can manifest as well too. Careers in technology, science, future focused, trends reading and so forth would be very, very beneficial for you in achieving the extrinsic outcomes of what you might intrinsically want, which is the new, the exciting, the different. And lastly, if you have Pisces in the second house, you don't take dollars all that seriously. That's not the point. You're much more intrinsic in a way than extrinsic. Though to the degree that you are extrinsic, you may not be that well understood by people. Some people might think the way you budget or how you use your money is a bit bizarre. It's not necessarily that you can't budget well or that you end up in any problems with it, but you are very intrinsically oriented and you are very connected to the collective and all those sorts of things. And your ways of earning money could seem different to people. A lot of you could be into spirituality, like this, for instance, or you're musical, you're creative, you really want to help others and support others in some way. So there's a very strong intrinsic basis there about that which connects and that which is emotionally resonant. So those are the signs through the houses. If you have planets in the second house, and if you don't have any, that in itself is interesting. Whenever you have a house that has no planets in it, or a sign that has no planets in it, it's almost as though there is a drawing towards that to fill it. So that it actually, interestingly enough, would tell you that there is a kind of a sense of something you need to fill there. And I think that may potentially come up in the intrinsic versus extrinsic side of this reading. But if you do have planets, just quickly what they can mean. The sun in the second house, there is pride around dollars, there is your self-image around dollars, and self-image is connected to the second house anyway as well. You're very security conscious, but you have to link what you are doing and making in the world to your life path and to your values. Any kind of wealth creation has to fit with almost the sense you have of yourself. So if you have the moon, there's a stronger emotional need for financial security. And when you spend, you might spend emotionally at times. You are very careful about how you express yourself and your values with the moon. With Mercury in the second house, you have very practical mind, very intelligent, practical approach to this. It's much more practical on that level around how you communicate and what you do and how you achieve things than it is abstract. You want outcomes, and particularly around, I think, wealth creation, lifestyle and so forth, and communicating who you are in a valid way that you are happy with. With Venus in the second house, for you there is a real thing around, there is a tangible expression of love through material outcomes, through generosity, through the lifestyle that you have. You are likely to be someone whose love language is partly gift giving and that sort of thing, and also in providing security and so forth, and pleasurable outcomes and activities for people. So Venus is very much linking this thing to love. You can be, interestingly, slow to commit to relationships because you value them so much and because you need to make sure there's an alignment. So if you have Venus in the second house, you may fall in love at first sight, but you're not likely to commit to that until you're really sure that everything lines up with your values intrinsically and extrinsically. If you have Mars in the second house, you're a very hard worker for anything that you get. You're very ambitious and practical. You can be a bit impatient about getting to what you want to do, particularly around manifestation. You also like a physical challenge around things. So that's sort of that sort of athletic sort of feeling around it. Then if you have Jupiter in the second house, you are very resourceful and you might seem lucky. Like some people might think, God, you're lucky. You know, you were born into privilege, or you make money easily, or you always win, you know, in the sort of sweeps, you know, for horse races or whatever it might be. You may have some luck around making money, but you love the five senses. Anything that connects to the five senses and it connects you in a positive way to the world is something that you will be pursuing through the second house. And you really do want to help, you know, your sense of self. Material success connects to your sense of self. Now, the interesting thing to me about that is there is a tension there between the sort of luck and how people might perceive it and what you actually put into things. And if you're connecting your sense of self to your achievement there, I doubt that most would want everybody to think it was all just luck. And it's not saying it's all just luck, but it may be saying that you do actually have a bit of a genius for doing this, and some people may see it as luck, as opposed to you really do expansively work with this particular house very well. If you have Saturn in there, because Saturn often, you know, slows things down, or it makes things like harder to get through, it's much more structured, you may sometimes feel a bit pessimistic about money and achieving what you want and so forth. But on the other hand, you can build something that's very, very lasting, and you will have a tendency, if you invested, to go for very steady, conservative, blue chip sort of options and so forth. Slow growth, likely to really manifest what you want later in life. But it doesn't mean, you know, you won't achieve anything when you're younger. It's just that there is a slower, wiser sort of energy around how you build your material wealth. But having said that, you're not likely to lose it. So some of the more fast planets within the second house could make money and lose money and make money and lose money. You are going to steadily build it. If you have Uranus in there, you see dollars and and material outcomes that as a means to an end. You're all about change. You want to affect change. You want to see things getting better. And for you, it's almost like the material outcomes are not the end in themselves, though they may well aid you in the end for you, which is how to change things and transform things. You want freedom, you want liberty, you want things to get better. And if you have Neptune in the second house, you're not actually that interested in money. It'll be very much the intrinsic values for you, and very much ones that connect you to your intuition, to your spiritual side, and so forth. You may even have a bit of inverse snobbery around manifestation, around wealth, around status. You may even think in your spiritual thing that anything that's about manifestation is somehow lesser than other sorts of telepathic or spiritual communion and connection. It's a possibility with Neptune in the second house. And then Pluto, there's very, very powerful material instincts. You're very transformative in terms of your intrinsic and extrinsic values and so forth. Very, very strategic. But you are likely to make your money or make your place through change and transformation in some way. Lastly, you can also think about Chiron. It's not one of the planets, but it's an asteroid. And Chiron is all about the wounded healer, and often shows elements from earlier in our life that we need to heal in some way, and how that plays out in the house that it's in. So if you have Chiron in the second house, there is a real sense that security comes from dollars. You may have had in your earlier life less money or less security than you wanted to have, and you are seeing a way to heal that sense of not having what you wanted when you wanted to have it and so forth, or feeling a bit excluded from the enjoyment of life in some way. The making of your own wealth, your own manifestation, becomes a way to heal that energy for you. So those, as I say, it's very high level, but it's just to give you a little bit more information, as I say, if you've had your chart, and which may sort of help in putting another flavour to whatever comes up in a collective reading like this, because of course being collective, they're going to be covering a lot of different people, and you may find that 2/3 of a reading fits, and then the rest of that, if you know that, gives you the full picture. So hopefully for those that were interested and had enough information about their chart to benefit from that was helpful. And as I say, if you're an astrologer listening to that and you have anything else that you think you found about any of those planets or any of those signs around the second house, please share, because that will be to the benefit of everybody. So this brings us to the pile choice. So a little bit further into the reading. So I'm going to firstly put down the numbers for those that like numbers around the piles. What I have done here, and this also aligns a little bit to if you do know your chart, but it's by no means something that matters for this, because if you don't, you just go intuitively to what number or card calls to you. But what I have done is I have taken 4 different tarot packs, so those are the tarot packs for each of the readings, and I have taken a 2 from each of the different suits, so that if you do know, for instance, that you are an earth sign in the second house, then the 2 of Pentacles kind of may be an indication to you that there could be energies here for you. It doesn't have to be that. I don't know what cards are under here. I don't know what are the key issues that are going to come out, but it might be an indication for you that could be the connection. But as I say, if you don't feel it, don't do it. But that's the logic of this. So I have the 2 of Pentacles from the Rebirth Tarot for pile 1. I have the 2 of Swords, so the air signs, from the White Fly Tarot for pile 2. I have the 2 of Cups, so all the water signs, from the Reigning Rouge Tarot for pile 3, and I have the 2 of Wands, so all the fire signs, from the Dream Vision Tarot for pile 4. But as I say, don't necessarily go to the one that aligns with your chart if you feel drawn to another, because what may come up, given it's a collective reading, may be much more in another of these things, and may be indicating that there are some key aspects from other planets in signs that are in a different element that are really important for your reading. But it's just I just did it in case that really helps somebody in making that choice and sort of aligning it all for themselves. So as always, go to more than one reading if you want. There could be messages across more than one. Take from this what resonates for you. Don't worry about the rest, because this is really going to be going into detail and depth. And so if something doesn't feel right, don't take it on. Don't try and live into it. It's very, very important, particularly when we're looking at the second house, which is in many ways is a house of manifestation, not to manifest the wrong thing just because you've heard it in a tarot reading. So use your discernment. When you know what reading or readings you want to listen to and watch, the timestamps as always are in the description box below, and I'll see you there. Welcome pile 1 to your reading. So these cards here are meant to be about your intrinsic values in the second house, and these cards are the extrinsic, so how that plays out in a more material way and so forth. And we will use some other cards that are under the tarot card you chose to look at the bridge between them before we go into the tarot reading. There's one very, very classic and I guess 3D sort of very, very practical way of reading these cards, which I'm going to mention and may fit for particular people because it's quite specific. And then I'm going to get into the depths because there's a lot of power and a lot of depth to these cards. And it's not to say actually that the 3D practical one doesn't have its depths, but it's just a particular way of reading these that immediately jumped out to me that might align for some who've come to this reading. Over here in the intrinsic values, there is, with these cards, with creation and with Sheila Nanig, who is a fertile, creative sort of goddess, and then the sense of creation, there is a real possibility that at the moment, people who've come to this reading, part of your intrinsic value is about having a family, giving birth, or being a birthing partner, that kind of thing. There may well be something around family that is an intrinsic value. It could be that a few that have come here have cancer, for instance, in the second house. So there's that element which then maybe in the extrinsic world has been a little bit disruptive to a career with chaos there, but which is making you think about how to work from home, do more from home. And it may ultimately, if that's the case, suit you a bit better with some of the depths of your personality. But there is very much a sense here that there are some people that the intrinsic value of family is having a disruptive but valid impact on what you extrinsically want to achieve and get, and that one is leading to the other. But as I say, if that's the case, I feel with the archetypes here that it's actually leading you more towards what is the right thing for you to do on a personal level, quite beyond just being, a parent or something like that. Not that I'm saying being a parent is just something. It's a major role and incredibly important. But I think what this would be saying is that this actually ultimately is taking you towards more of who you are, and you will discover a lot about yourself. And so I say it's a classic thing for someone who maybe was in the corporate world or something and then decides to start a family, and so decides to start their own business and so forth, so that they can be around more for caregiving and the early years of a child's life and all of that kind of thing. So it's very, very specific. I think though for many, if that doesn't relate, there is still something amazingly creative about you. You're both intrinsically and extrinsically, you need to bring in things that are new, you need to create, you need to be able to express who you are. And if that means sometimes that you throw everything up in the air and create a bit of chaos to get there, you will do it. And you are very likely, if it's not a home-based business, home-based work or work that is very true to your base, because I think of the home sometimes as the fourth house as well, which is true to who you are, that is potentially a real way that you will start to manifest it. If you are in just a workplace, I think, in an organization and you're an employee, you're going to be limiting what you could do, because there's a hell of a lot of creative energy and innovative energy for you, and you put a lot of intrinsic value around that. It actually means that you can deal with change a lot. So you may also potentially make money and get the lifestyle you want because you are able to go into chaos, because you are able to go into that and see it as a creative act and bring something out of it. So if you are in an organization, it could be that you are a natural change agent. That would be another way you could use this energy. But with home-based business there, I feel like a lot of you should be doing something for yourself. The other reason why I say that is there's a hell of a lot of depth here with Sage and Lilith. You have a lot of internal power. And it does make me think with Lilith there's a great wisdom in what you do. And that I think is why you can deal with the chaos of Set over here. But I feel as though for some of you, your intrinsic value of your creativity, you may have felt in your life that you aren't achieving what you want with that. You're not being recognized, because Lilith as an archetype is the first woman, like the first bride of Adam, but she was sort of pushed to the side for Eve in the sort of Genesis mythology. So there may be a feeling here that the intrinsic love for creativity at the moment, because we are trying to look at this, how this is playing out for you at the moment, may be feeling a little bit not seen. And this may be why on the extrinsic level there is a need to shake things up. For some of you, you may literally have been passed over for a promotion, or you might not have had something creatively published, or you might have even, at worst case scenario, had somebody take something from you in some way, take the credit for your work. And that's why extrinsically you need to shake things up, and your capacity to do that, because you have the wisdom intrinsically, you can do that without throwing the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak. So you can do that extrinsically, and your capacity and your courage, you have a huge amount of courage, but you go to the depths and the detail with the detective there. So there's something, for some of you, this creative work may, in the way that you would make money, may be something that really helps people get to the depths of something. It could be a therapeutic approach. It could be an app, it could be a software program, it could be working in some sort of forensic science or forensic police work or detective literally on some level, but in a very creative way, in a way that is different, that is quirky. And you want to work on your own, I think. And part of this might be because of the Lilith energy there, where you've not been recognized. And this could be right back to your childhood. It might have been in your childhood, you had all these creative ideas, but they weren't valued within your family. Maybe you were in a family that was much more valuing, the corporate job or the academic outcomes. Not that you mightn't have had great academic outcomes, but I think there's something very unique and individual about you that may not have fitted in with the common way of looking at things. Some of you may even be neurodiverse or something like that, but it's incredibly creative because of that. But I do feel as though there is a side of you extrinsically that knows, number one, that you can go into areas that other people are too scared to go into, but two, that you probably do need to work on your own, or even if you're in an organisation, to find a place that is your own in some way, and ideally do as much work from home or in an office away from others as possible, because you go to levels that other people don't go to, and that is what will help you manifest. But it's order out of chaos. There's something like that for you. And it is possible that there's some wounds here, I think. This feels as though with Lilith there are some wounds around this, which is why you're at a point now to manifest what you want, that Set is there. So Set as chaos is not necessarily a bad god. I mean, he is a god of sort of challenge and chaos and all those sort of things. But you need that sometimes in life, and you are more equipped to deal with it than many. But you do need time out, and you do need to work out your rules around it, I think. But you can go to the depths to do that, because you're very, very wise. You're very, your creativity comes from a real spiritual heft. But as I say, there's some sort of a bridge between what you're trying to create and what frustration you might have had around that, and how you can shake things up. What is going to help you do that? So that was the concept of the bridge here, because it was, if there was a tension in this, I wanted to use the bridge for how to better connect intrinsic and extrinsic values. And if it was a synergy, it was more how to heighten them. So I think for you, it's how to connect them, because it feels like there's something that is stuck and you really need to shake up. So we have, forgiveness. Oh, definitely. And I am not a victim. Okay, that couldn't be much clearer. So whatever has happened to you, you can forgive. You don't necessarily, if somebody has done wrong by you, it doesn't necessarily mean that you should work with them in the future or anything like that. But forgiving them, letting them go, not letting that determine who you are. Because if you stay stuck in the Lilith energy, you keep yourself stuck, as opposed to, stirring it all up and starting to build something that's more true to you. And again, Little Red Riding Hood, I am not a victim. There is a great strength in Little Red Riding Hood. She was very clever, and you're very clever. So the idea there is about owning what is unique about you, clever about you, strategic about you, And again, strategic people can deal with chaos better than other people can. So there's something for the people who've come to this reading. If you've come to the right reading, there is a very material outcome between what you intrinsically love to do and get pleasure from, which is creation, the new, applying your wisdom to something that takes things forward, and then manifesting that in, I think, a business or a career, money-making type of venture that uses all those skills, but which helps you heal and forgive where possibly you haven't been understood or recognized before, so that you can be, so that you become the creator of your destiny rather than the person who feels a little bit buffeted by fortune. So it'll be interesting when we get to the things about what's in and outside of your control to particularly look at that, because I think more is in control than you possibly think. So let's now look at the tarot. Let's ask the tarot. Firstly, a little bit more about, you know, where you are on your journey to really achieve what you want from your second house, to get the lifestyle that you want, the self-worth that you want, the material outcomes that you want, to align it with your values and so forth. And then we will ask for Spirit's advice around this. So firstly, just a little bit more detail. I should say, actually, I'm getting, before I do that, that if you are the person, you know, one of the people who the whole thing about parenthood matters, maybe there have been some tensions around your work. Maybe for some of you, you've had to leave a workplace because they didn't have a good maternity or paternity system, for instance, or you could see that it was really going to limit you or whatever. But again, it's like you're creating what you want, and you will be able to do something for yourself as well. So I just got that to say that. Looking again with the tarot. Wow, you've got 3 queens. That's really interesting. Now, that could mean a couple of things. It could mean that there's 3 people, one of which may be you, and you don't have to be a woman for this. It's not about gender, that are involved somehow in you achieving what you're trying to achieve at the moment in terms of material outcomes, lifestyle, etc. If that's the case, then I suspect that some of them actually are drawing a lot on your kind of nurturing side, which is showing here, and you feel a lot like you need to do that, but they maybe are a bit stuck. I feel like if those are 2 other people, which I think for some of you it will be, there's some that are a bit emotionally stuck, a bit afraid, and don't have self-esteem and so forth. It's almost as though for some of you, what this creation is that you're going to do, because you understand what it is to be not seen and not loved, or whatever it might have been, that the Lilith energy is there, you are here to shake everything up and to get them to become unstuck, because you are more secure than you possibly see yourself as being. Certainly with the Queen of Pentacles there again, that is calling out to potentially some people where there could be parenthood involved. But I feel like for a lot, there is something around, and if these aren't individuals, then maybe it's just energies. There's something about what you can do with your creativity that takes people beyond their emotional and ego limitations. And if it isn't about that, then there's something about you moving into this chaos and owning who you are and standing, you know, in your own sort of security sort of level, which is about releasing that for yourself. If this Lilith energy, for instance, had stopped you from having the self-esteem and stopped you from feeling emotionally connected, then there is something material, very material, and this is why the second house is important to you, very material, that actually helps you break that apart, and you have the skills to do it. With the 8 of Pentacles there, you've done whatever work you had to do. You are skilled enough now to shake things up. I think what happens with people as they develop a mastery of something is that you get to a certain level where you can fit with all the rules and you can follow all the things and so forth. Then you get to the level of mastery. Once you get to the level of mastery, you can like throw all the rule books out and create something new and evolve it. So you're at that point. And this is something that has connected back to childhood. So I do think for many of you, if you resonate to the concept that you weren't seen as a child, you've done the work that you needed to do to now be able to stand more in your own truth and so forth. And as I say, if you are staying in an organization around this, then I think that you will start to see the material outcomes because you're prepared to do things differently in some way. And I think you will have allies, interestingly enough, who can see how that helps them. All right, let's ask Spirit for some advice for you around achieving this, achieving what it is intrinsically and extrinsically you really want in the second house. And I think for you it is about the freedom to create, to be seen for what you bring to the table, and to be able to really shake things up, but to work more independently than possibly you're working at the moment. So what's Spirit's advice? So for a start, with the star at one side and the chariot at the other, I think there's a very strong thing about be optimistic. You have put a lot of work in, but with the star there is a real opportunity to start to create the dream that we see in the Six of Cups, that it's clarifying here. And with the chariot, there's a sense of moving forward, again with clarifying the Queen of Pentacles, that sense that on a material level, you're ready to move forward. You've done a lot of the work to understand how to deal with it. And the chariot is a really good card in a way to pick up what I'm feeling from that set card, which is the chariot is all about balancing head and heart, balancing sort of conflicting emotions and thoughts and demands and all that kind of thing, often in a fast-paced environment or with people who are wanting to move very fast. There's a sense of controlling the energy and moving forward, having a forward momentum. So I think Spirit is saying you have the foundation to do that. That's why you can be a change agent in whatever form that is. That's why you can be the creative person. You can bring things into being. And if you want to do is create your own business, then you are able to start that process if you haven't already. You're also, Spirit saying, very pragmatic now. I think this is picking up this energy here with the Lovers reverse and the Fool reverse. I do think that for some of you, this is about people that you will help, but I think it is also, Spirit is also saying it's pointing to people who maybe have not understood you, put you down, competed with you, and so forth. You are now much clearer about who to trust and not to trust. You may have been, because you were this sort of wise, creative, nurturing energy, you may well have had a number of people around you that were not really supporters of you but appeared to be. You know, they could say the nice words and so forth. And this may be part of this I'm not a victim and forgiveness. You've understood that. You've become much more pragmatic about who to keep around. They were hard work by the looks of things. So there's definitely a sense here with someone like you that your drive is so new and innovative but nevertheless grounded in wisdom, that you can be the change agent, you can be the new person, you can bring the new in, that you will have some hangers on and you will have people who want to exploit that, but you've learnt from whatever that is. And so Spirit is saying, don't forget in your optimism and your sense of moving faster and faster and faster in whatever this is, don't forget those lessons. That pragmatism is well won, basically. And not all connections, and then this is again going with the loner. I think for many of you, it is going to be you're much more an independent worker or an independent manifester rather than one in a collective. It's better for you to work on your own, I think, or to establish a space for yourself if you're working with a number of people. But be optimistic. You're heading in the right direction. Even if you feel with the chaos over there at the moment that think some things are not sure and you're kind of throwing everything up in the air, you are more than capable of looking at the detail, working out what to do and building it into something. So that's very positive. We also, under the tarot card, had a couple of heart code oracle cards that I wanted to pull for a little bit more information about the current state. So one is around lifestyle and one is around finance, because I think those are the two key areas. Even though we talked a bit about career will also come up quite a bit in the 6th house and the 10th house episodes of this series. But career is, of course, often very much connected to wealth and lifestyle and so forth. So I've talked about that in terms of how you manifest. But these cards are really, as I say, about your money situation at the moment and also your lifestyle situation and how they have a bearing on this. So in terms of money, we have doubt. And that kind of fits. I do think for many of you, you've suffered a loss of some sort, or there's a major change that's coming through. Could be that, as I said, you're going into parenthood and you're worried about that in the longer term. But I think this is just this energy of change around you. But remember that Spirit said be optimistic. You really do have what you need. You've got the skills to take yourself through this. And then lifestyle. We've got stagnant. So you need to shake things up. So there's something else. There's a secondary message in this around the second house for you, because remember, this is about what you value intrinsically and extrinsically. To get what you value intrinsically, you need to shake things up a bit, because extrinsically you've got into a pattern that suited you. It may be that you haven't yet made the shift around your work or whatever it might be, and you feel as though you're kind of a bit stuck, but your capacity to deal with chaos and so forth and take it forward and make something of it is the way to unstick things. So if you're feeling a bit stuck, some of you may have Saturn in the second house, if you listen to the part of the introduction that I talked about, because Saturn can sometimes block things or make them feel a bit slower than you want and so forth. But if that's the case, that's about to shift with the Chariot. I mean, I would say there'll be an aspect in your chart to Saturn that releases it in some way or spurs it on. So when something like Uranus or potentially Mars or something like that aspects to Saturn in your chart, it can really spur on and start to break that sort of sense of being stuck. So I think, again, that's good news. I think that there's something that's been painful about what you value and how you want to manifest, but I do think you're moving into a better cycle. So the next thing we want to look at, given that, is what kind of aspects around you would really help you. So I'm going to look at astrology, and then I'm going to look at a personality sort of oracle as well. So this is really just to sort of see what parts of you would really help you to get this balance and this connection right, and to, I think, move things forward with confidence. So firstly, astrology. Fifth house, the second house. So it's definitely doubling down on this. You're definitely focusing where you need to focus. And the North Node. Okay, so with the North Node, you are heading towards, I guess, your life path, the things that you need to do. In Western astrology, that is what that's about. In Vedic astrology, North Node can sometimes be the thing that we hunger for, but we never feel we fully get. So I do think there is a little bit of an element. You may have the North Node in the second house. So part of your pathway is towards being able to be more of this sort of person standing on their own 2 feet, or having very much marked out how they make money and be able to deal with major change in some way, heading towards that, rather than feeling a bit stuck. Rather than feeling that it's all about nurturing others and not having the spotlight, because I think you're meant to be seen in some way. So some of you may very well have your North Node in the second house if you know your chart. If not, there is something about the nature of the second house and the fifth house that are important to you. So for some, this is about children. It is about the changes and transitions in life where there are children involved. Whether you're about to start a family, as I said at the beginning, or whether it could be the exact opposite. It could be empty nest with the children are now leaving and you're sort of shaking everything up to work out what you can do next, because you've dedicated so much of your life in recent years to being the parent, for instance. So it could be at either end of that spectrum, but there is a connection to that. There's a connection to creativity, and you are creative, and love potentially, though I think it's more about creativity than anything here. And as I say, to what it is that you're trying to manifest in the world. But I think it's a very good sign to get those things together, because I think it's really showing you are on the right path, even if you feel at the moment like, I feel a little bit antsy about what I need to do and whether I'm ready to do it and how I do it and so forth. So let's have a look at some personal aspects which you could either enhance or the opposite, depending upon how they fit with what the reading is saying, to help with this, with maximizing what you want from your second house. Yellow, Scorpio, and Navy. Okay, so firstly, I think yellow here is about the cheerfulness and so forth. It's about that sort of thing, the solar plexus chakra, which is about self-actualization. It is about being confident. I think really work on that confidence, because you have so much more possibly in your kit bag than you're giving yourself credit for, and back yourself around that sort of stuff. Your confidence will help you move out of any kind of sense of a rut and make you be able to deal with the change. It's very interesting, there's Scorpio here. So some of you may have Scorpio in the second house. If not, Scorpio planets or Scorpio elements are aspecting how you extrinsically, I think, really bring this about, because there's something quite Scorpionic about Set, in the sense of the kind of shadow elements and the kind of chaotic elements, and the detective archetype is very Scorpionic as well. So your intensity and your capacity to get to the depths and to deal with the dramatic is going to be very important to you, and to be able to take authority when you need to take authority. You do a lot around duty, I think, but I think authority, you're meant to take authority. You're very devoted and you have a lot of duty, but you need to adapt to taking more authority, I think. This is saying, like, you don't have to have one or the other, but to move towards the manifestation of this, the extrinsic outcomes, you need to move into more of a position of authority for yourself in one way or another. Become this Queen of Pentacles, as I say. Okay, let's have a look at what's in your control and outside of your control. And so we're going to use a couple of classic fortune decks for that. So I'm going to do 2 cards from the Lenormand for what's in your control and what's outside of your control, and 2 cards from the Madame Endora deck for the same thing. So firstly, in control and out of control. And what I mean by out of control is not the world is out of control with you, it's what is externally impacting on you. So in control and out of control for Lenormand. In control. And then out of control. Or external. And I'm going to do the same with the Madame Endora. In control. And external. Okay, so within your control, the things that at the moment you can focus on, there is information coming to you with the writer. So it's kind of externally coming, but it is information. It's information, may even be partly this reading, to be honest, but it could also be, you know, other things that you're hearing around if you are using that detective energy to really understand your environment. And it's information that's going to make you feel a lot more secure about what you're doing. So I think there is information coming to you that internally you will feel stronger within yourself, because the Tower in Lenormand is almost the opposite of the Tower in Tarot. It is about that which is secure, that which is lasting. And so I think for many of you, if there's been some concern about, I think particularly your capacity to make money in the future, to be able to make the transitions that you want, or if it's a transition within your workplace, you are going to hear soon that you can in fact do that and you can feel secure. And it's saying when you get this information, use logic, reason and common sense. So it may be that for some of you, there's a lot of change going on at the moment, but in fact, you're going to find your element with that. If that's the case, you're going to find yourself far more secure in that than other people would be. And you will triumph over any adversity. So whatever this thing is where maybe you had felt victimized or not seen, your capacity to use information in a logical way and to structure things and to get to the depths over here with the detective is going to mean you triumph over adversity in a long-standing, secure way. Over here in terms of external stuff, this is again saying something's coming. So I think there's a connection. There's some information coming to you. So if you felt a bit in the dark about something, it's coming. And it's good news with the moon. So again, it's not something to be worried about. The shield here says you are safe from harm. So I think that you are watched over either by very strong spirit guides or you are watched over by people who are on your side and so forth. And you have an oracular ability, which is bringing in, this is the detective and the sage together. Those two together is very oracular. And this says seek wisdom and guidance from elders. So I think some of this is saying that there is external support for you, information coming to you. And for many of you, it may be through your spirit guides. Okay, so what we want to finish up with is the Astro Chakra cards to just sort of see what other things can bring you into balance for this. So I do think that there's a lot of promise here for you and a better moving better into the promise of your second house, I think, than maybe you've been through before. So, but let's see what else Spirit wants to say as a closing out for you, pile 1. Okay, this definitely is picking up. There's something that you've gone through where you haven't had the recognition that you wanted, you haven't been treated the way that you should have been treated, whether it's in childhood, whether it was with a romantic partnership, whether it's in your workplace. There's something, because forgiveness is coming up again. The 4th chakra, the heart chakra, is very important to this. What you love and who you love is very important to this. And so, and I say what and who because it can be a thing, it can be an ambition, it can be a creation, or it could be a person, or it could be a combination of both. We have Neptune and Venus both in the 4th chakra here. That's like having them conjunct. So your spiritual connection, your inspiration, and your love nature are connected somehow to this creativity and to your capacity to take power with the solar plexus chakra in the change environment and so forth, and to command respect because of your wisdom. This is going back, the Neptune here is picking up the sage. You are going to be seen to have a creation, a solution, a way of dealing with change, something like that. You are going to be recognized. You just need to take that forward. And for many of you, you may be able to create it as a business for yourself going forward as well. But you will need to maybe work with people who haven't, collaborators or clients, whatever, who maybe have not fully understood you or respected you before, or you need to forgive where you haven't been seen before to fully take advantage of this opportunity that this change is doing. I am getting that for some of you, there's so much change going on in workplaces because if you're listening to this, in 2022, so many changes going on in workplaces because of the longer term effects of the pandemic. It may be that there's something in that for you, that your capacity to navigate that is going to help make your material outcomes, your extrinsic rewards from the second house. So pile 1, I hope that resonated for you. I hope it was helpful and I hope it was enjoyable. If so, please like the video and subscribe if you haven't already done so. And if you care to share, I'd love to hear about this in the comments. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings and future episodes of this particular series as well. See you later. Welcome, pile 2, to your reading. So these cards here are about intrinsic values that are part of your second house, and this is the extrinsic or material outcomes. And I've got to say, you guys are interesting. So there's a few ways of looking at this, and they're all kind of interrelated, but I'll sort of go through each of them. What I will say about your intrinsic values, the things that give you your sense of self-esteem, and the things that you truly enjoy, very, very, very spiritual, very, very shamanic, very, very transpersonal, very, very visionary. Like, it's all about the psychic, the spiritual, the transformative for you. Like, I would think that many of you would have either Pisces or Scorpio potentially in the second house. If not, I think you have planets in those signs that impact somehow on other planets or the energies of the second house, because you guys are deep. On a very basic level, your dream life, the sort of dreams that you have and so forth, are going to be extraordinary. Probably you're going to be one of those people who has really amazing dreams. And you also translate that into the intrinsic self-worth. Your pursuit of your dreams in the material sense over here is part of what you intrinsic. It's almost the journey for you is more than the destination. Though interestingly enough, the destination is with other people and is very, you could potentially have followers, you could potentially have fans. There's that kind of energy in how this comes out, because you are really ahead of the curve. With Aquarius, you are very, and you could, again, Aquarius could be in the second house as well too, actually. That's possible, and it's another way that these energies could come up with Scorpio or Pisces. If not, Aquarius is important. But I feel here Aquarius is really talking about the transpersonal. It's talking about things that are larger than life, larger than you. And then you have Persephone, which is all about the cycles of life. And I think with Persephone, she's the one who went into the underworld and bringing about winter each year. So she has a real capacity to go into the depths, into the shadow, and to face that and to to love that side of herself as much as, and to love the elements of that as much as being out in the sunshine or whatever. So there are great depths to you, and you could not pursue your career, your material outcomes in a way that was out of sync with this. You would find it incredibly frustrating if you went into, say, an office job, and there's nothing wrong with an office job, but if it's an office job where you're just doing the same thing day in, day out, even if it is of service to others, any of that stuff, that would kind of kill your soul a bit. You would need to do something that really went to those depths and showed that wisdom and that vision that you have. There's a large sense of future with you. Some of you may, in your careers and so forth, to bring out this intrinsic joy of looking into the future and being oracular and all those sorts of things, may work in future focus types of areas, may make money through future focus types of areas. You could spot trends. You could see who's going to be successful. You could work the stock market, any of those sorts of things. You could be in technology and science, but a cutting edge stuff that is a combination of the spiritual and the intellectual. So you are deep. You are really deep, Pole 2. And you need to nourish that depth, I think, intrinsically. That's what you value. And as I say, anything that doesn't do that and that isn't almost agnostic. Is the connection to Persephone and Aquarius here? I feel like it's agnostic to the values that society more generally puts on things. So what is good and bad, and for you it's a much deeper thing. And so you're not necessarily going to follow social conventions if you don't think that they're valid, you don't think that they're where we're heading, and you don't think that they're true, and you would really hate any sort of spiritual stuff that's all very light and fluffy and, you know, everything's warm and sunshine and flowers and unicorns and everything. That is just not you. It's not. If you were working in spiritual sort of areas, and some of you may very well with this, you would not be the sort of person who shied away from the shadow with Persephone there, but you would help people through it because you have the strength, the innate strength to do it. Very, very interesting intrinsically. How that plays out extrinsically is also interesting. We have our Puch over here, who is a god about fear. So you may be a little bit, one way of reading this is you may be on an extrinsic level on how you do what you do in the world. You may be a little bit frightened of yourself even. That kind of what's coming up from the depths and from your dreams might seem almost unmanageable or too far out of reach. So there could be a bit of fear that you deal with. But if that's the case, networking here, like connecting with others, is going to be important. I'm getting what they call the Gestalt effect, which is where the whole is greater than the sum of the parts, where you find a number of different people with different skills and you bring them together and you get a bigger outcome than you would with any of them working individually. So if the fear there on the extrinsic is you have such big dreams and such future focused sort of ideas and so forth that you're a little bit scared about how they would be received or whether you could actually manifest them in, you can find your people potentially. So that's one way of reading that, and some of that might be about being a bit dramatic and creative and charismatic with it, and finding the right friends, like finding the people who are like-minded. But I get for a lot of you, it's actually you helping people deal with their fear. The fact that you've got Persephone over here, you're very comfortable with that. You don't blink when it comes to the shadow. Some of you may literally work in some sort of therapeutic area or something like that, where you're helping people deal with the shadow and deal with their fears. You start to manifest the life that you have through being able to help others, you know, and almost show them how to fake it till they make it kind of thing with the performer there, that they can do that and give them that sort of sense of connection and so forth and networking. So I think that for many of you, how you will end up making money and giving the lifestyle that you want to have while remaining true to this really deep, interesting, future-focused side of you will be through helping others through fear and change in some way. Others of you, you are going to have followers. You're going to have followers, you're going to have fans. And it may be sometimes for you that causes a little bit of fear for you about boundaries and so forth. I'm just getting that for some of you, you will get people who get a bit obsessed with you. So it's going to be very important that you network with the right people and you make the right friends. There may be some around you in your extrinsic sort of side of this that are more actors than than real. So if you have a little bit of caution there, I think our puch there is actually good for caution. So it may be, as I say, that because there's something about you and people are going to follow you, I think. So it's getting that right, getting the right people. It's going to be very, very important to you to stay true to who you are, and to manifest that extrinsically is to get the right people around you, and to use your capacity with the shadow to help others deal with the shadow, not to have it projected on you, or to have it materializing in your life through people who bring shadow elements, obsession with you. You are going to have some people obsessed with you. So I think you just need to be aware of that. Okay, so what was also under the tarot card bringing to this reading were a couple of cards to look at the bridge between these two. And so it was kind of the connection between the intrinsic sort of drive and the extrinsic outcome, either to help you if there was a conflict, and it really depends on which of those resonate for you as to whether there's conflict, or to maximize really what you want over here extrinsically to be in alignment with the intrinsic. So let's see what you had. We have inner life. Well, that's you all over. And then we've got Once Upon a Midnight Dreary, which is about creativity, genius, writing, expression, artistic flow. Okay, so you are first and foremost about your inner life. Like, to some degree, if you were born with money, and some of you might be, so you didn't have to worry about the material outcomes of the second house, you could very easily just spend a life in looking at sort of spiritual matters, creative matters, and so forth. And you know, externalizing that through friendships and through creative types of things and so forth. So that's a possibility. You may even have some sort of like fear or kind of discomfort with sort of like the money side of things, because in a sense you have that already. But you know, many of you who come here probably didn't come from that degree of privilege and money and so forth. But why I say that is that because the intrinsic side for you has to be satisfied. It's about your inner life, and Spirit is saying here very clearly that this is the part of you that must continually be cultivated and grown, regardless of how the external world deals with it, I would say. And creativity is something to do with this. So it is saying that you could have this rich inner life, but you are meant to create something, and this might be around the performer, I think, and maybe the networking. But I think there may be, for many of you, a creative outlet that is performative in some way, that takes this and brings it to more people. In its own way, it's a bit like doing readings like this on YouTube, for instance. It's a spiritual sort of practice that has a certain performance aspect to it, that is creative in some way. That's just an example, but you are meant not just to live within, you are meant to actually take this to others in some way, because I do think you're going to help other people deal with shadow, and I do think you're going to have the right people in your life. I think that there might be some strong connections in your chart between the second house and the 11th house. I wouldn't be surprised if there are planets in the 11th house that aspect through to planets in your second house, if you've seen your thing, because the 11th house is about networking, and we will get to that house eventually when in this series. So if you enjoy this, then make sure to kind of reconnect that back, because I do think there's something about the 11th house for you in manifesting your second house. Okay, and maybe the 5th house too with creativity. All right, let's have a look with the tarot. Let's ask firstly where you're up to at the moment with your manifestation of what you want from the second house, and then we're going to see what advice Spirit has for you. Okay, the fact that there's a lot of reverse there, I think, is just really saying you're sitting very much in the intrinsic. And I don't think there's actually anything too wrong with that, as long as you do eventually sort of try and create and share what you do in whatever form. It is saying too with the Queen of Pentacles, some of you may have the money, or you might have a very successful career and you compartmentalize your life. And so what you really, all the career stuff comes up in the 6th house and the 10th house for you. But like what you value and what you want to manifest is something that's almost apart from your work, and you have the money so you can actually focus on this. You might have a part-time job that pays very well or something like that. Or you have, as I say, money to be able to spend time contemplating the universe more than necessarily making the money. And that may be the case for quite a few of you, because there isn't really a sense of money making there, except for maybe through performance and networking. So money isn't really what it's about for you, though you are likely still to be able to manifest materially. That's the good news, and I think you're in the process of doing it. But a lot of the internal work, so with Temperance reversed and Five of Swords reversed, this is the Persephone sort of thing. You are able to look into what is not working within, both within yourself, I think, and I think there's almost a way through the Aquarian energy here where it extrapolates out to the collective. So I think you're very connected to the collective, but I think it's sort of like it's your almost shamanic journey that connects you to the collective, and you are picking up at the moment static on the airwaves, I think would be what I would say. You are picking up where things are out of balance, where people are in fear, for instance, like what you see on the external world, you feel within, and you can sort of see where things are going. And you looks like you want to course correct, both for yourself and for others, I think. There's maybe a business idea or a creative idea that you haven't fully developed. Maybe it got a little out of whack with what your inner life was, because I do think you get pressure from other people because they're so intrigued by you. And that is picking up whatever this imbalance is that you're picking up more generally. So it's saying that you're taking a little bit more care at the moment about what you do and how you do it. And I think that that's good. With the Five of Swords reversed, we are moving towards the Six of Swords, so more peace of mind and being able to move forward. But it does feel like there must have been some arguments or some issues around it. You might scare some people. You may, and people may push back for that reason. That's why I think we've got the Friend and the Performer, that kind of lighter energy around it and so forth. But I feel as though for many of you, you've picked up a disturbance in the field, so to speak, on a kind of psychic level, and you've kind of put a little bit of a halt on something till you can be a bit more pragmatic about what to do with it. So let's ask Spirit's advice about how to take this forward. Okay, I think Spirit's first advice is don't make any decisions too quickly. There's more information to come around this, and there is some sort of like an ego battle associated with it in some way. I do think for some of you, as I say, you threaten people or intimidate people, and there may be pushback, and you've got to almost wait for that to work its way out, because it's just really other people's fears, and you can sort of stand and wait for that. Some of this your real challenge, I think, is going to be how you balance the pragmatism you're trying to do with feeling stuck. I think that you like to move forward. You are very future focused. Your biggest challenge, Spirit is saying at the moment, is to cool your jets and wait for a bit more information, and maybe to network a bit more to get more of a sense about what's going on. There is some disturbance around people with you. As I say, some people are afraid, or you are dealing with people who have a lot of emotional and ego issues that they have to deal with, and they're kind of stuck. And so you need to take it step by step. You're going to be the leader in this. That's part of who you are, but you're not ready to make the decision, and that's okay. It's like, let the information come through, and at this point, network, bring in external information. It's almost like this is the internal radar, and then this is the external verification, and it's just give it a little bit more time. There's something that needs to develop. Okay, so for a little bit more practical advice, also under the card that you chose to come to this reading are a couple of cards from the Heart Code Oracle. So I've used the lifestyle and the finance ones because I think they're probably the most strongly aligned with the energies of the second house. So for finance, we have target. Okay, so maybe this is saying at the moment this is still a little bit theoretical, and maybe one of the things with the sort of Queen of Pentacles there, and with some of these sort of putting the brake on it, is to work out what your target is. Like, what are you really trying to achieve, particularly if you are trying to make money out of this, using your networks, getting your information and so forth, so that when you do the performance and you help people with the fear, there is a financial or material target involved. So I do think that one of the key things for pile 2 is that you are so spiritual. It's getting it in the material level. That's your challenge is over here, And that's why I didn't feel like it was financially focused. But Spirit is saying that a target is necessary to really move this forward. And then in terms of lifestyle, we have reputation. So there's something about you and networking and friendships and your reputation. Some of you are scary to people. You have a kind of like, people know about your name before you even turn up sort of thing. You do need to be aware of that. You want your reputation to be about helping other people deal with fear and so forth, and look to the future and feel comfortable with it. Not to be so far ahead that people can't understand you, or they think that you're just disruptive and you cause fear. Because it's like anything. Like if you were in a political environment, for instance, and you were very future focused and you knew that there was a major change we needed for the economic system, for instance, there's going to be a lot of fear and pushback if you just try and push that through really fast. You need your reputation to be about the sort of wisdom and the moving towards something that's it's done in a way that people can handle and in good timing and has good targets that you can measure. That will help the reputation, rather than feeling like you're some sort of lunatic who wants to throw all the dice up in the air and just see what happens. So there's something about that for you. Okay, so now we want to look at some aspects about you personally that can help you with the intrinsic and extrinsic side of your second house. So we're going to start with some more astrology information. We've got Aries. That's picking up the Emperor, very much around being the leader. The fourth house, okay, and Aquarius. So it's definitely connecting back to this Aquarius. This side of you that is future focused, maybe scientifically, technologically, otherworldly, off-world connections, whatever it might be, is important to this. You are always going to be ahead of the pack. You just are. And that's okay, Spirit is saying. But some of that you maybe need to keep a bit private with the fourth house until the time is right. The fourth house is who we really are at our base. It'll be a very interesting one in this series when we get to it, because in some ways the fourth house is more core to us than even our sun sign or our ascendant. Having said that, I think this is saying that this bit, this intrinsic thing, who you are at home, is so important to this. You cannot lose this. If you lose this, you're not going to materialize what you want to materialize anyway. And you are going to have to take the lead with that. And you're going to need to be a bit more ambitious about it. I think you're kind of theoretical. And you, as I say, if you had money to have a comfortable lifestyle, I don't even think you're sort of someone who's driven by being really rich or anything, but if you had money to have a comfortable lifestyle, you'd be kind of so happy with your inner world and your inner life that you could just sit and theorize around this forever and not do anything with it. But you are meant to do something with it, because you're going to help other people. Okay, so let's have a look at another oracle around some personal characteristics for you. Rabbit, Sagittarius, Taurus. Wow, this is all about astrology. You're very, well, that doesn't really surprise me, but that degree of kind of almost divinatory, oracular stuff, you're very connected to astrology. Many of you may be astrologers or be very aligned with astrological energy, which would make you very aligned with a reading like this, I think. So the elements here, I think we're talking about personal characteristics. So in the Chinese year of the rabbit, and you may have been born in one of those years potentially, you don't have to have been, but the Chinese year of the rabbit is very kind and sensitive, artistic, a little bit timid though. I think there is a sort of sense here. There's a subtext here of all this massive power, knowledge and so forth, but not necessarily like living the inner world. Maybe a little bit of fear again and bringing that out. But Sagittarius may help with that, because Sagittarius is about adventure and taking the philosophy and being brave and so forth. And then Taurus is practical and focused. And so it's interesting that Taurus came up here, because Taurus rules the second house. So I think it is saying that your second house is very, very important, both I think for you and for whatever your mission is here. So this reading is one of the most important houses for you, because there is so much that you have to give from a spiritual level, and so much that you can do in the extrinsic, exterior world. So have that sense of bravery around it, but the right timing as well. So, and rabbits can be a bit judgmental. So it may well be that turn that judgmental energy to timing energy, and that will be a help for you. All right, so we're also going to have a look at what's in your control, sort of internal to you, and also what's more external, so outside of your control. And I'm going to use a couple of classic fortune decks for that. So I'm going to have a couple of cards from the Lenormand deck for the in your control and external, and then similarly from the Madame Endora fortune cards deck. So in your control, that's interesting, that came up for another. All right, okay. And then outside of your control or external. Ah, that's interesting. And then we'll do the same with Madame Endora. In your control. And outside of your control. Or external. Okay, interesting. So, in your control, so internally to you, there is some information coming to you. It comes from chatter, and it may be internal chatter here. I feel for you, because, you know, when this came up in another reading, I thought it kind of connected to an external sort of source in the material world. I think for you, it's almost like chatter on the airwaves psychically. I think that many of you would be clairaudient or clairsentient or claircognizant. So there is information that comes to you from an external source, but which you process internally, and it gives you some control over choices. But it's warning you to keep your true feelings about something masked at the moment. So there's something over here where, as I say, you draw people who project, and we'll get to that. You draw people who project or who are a bit obsessive about you or potentially scared of you and may try and sort of stand in your way for that reason. So you have such depths, and not everybody is ready for that part too. So I think it's in your control to keep some of your feelings to yourself, also so that externally there isn't gossip and chatter and so forth about you, because there's something about you, as I say, I think you could become famous or something, like people are going to talk about you, but you are in control, I think, of that. And if you're meticulous and patient about how you present what you see and understand, that will work well for you. Over here in the external, there's a woman potentially, or someone who sort of has feminine characteristics with the lady coming up. And I think she is in need of some form of healing or support with the Lily card there. So I think, again, this sort of feeling that you help people, it could be a friend, but it may also be someone you need to be careful of, because we also have the wolf, and beware who you trust. So there may be someone who you are helping in some way who could turn on you. And this is why it's important not to show too much of your hand. You know, like if you are taking this wisdom and putting it externally, focus it on the other people more and on sort of lighter networking kind of energies, because it feels as though there's someone who could try and take advantage in some way. You are watched over by spirit, which doesn't surprise me. So there is a kind of equal force watching over you, and it's probably sending the messages through here that you're getting, but there's somebody in your environment you need to be a bit careful of. And they may get obsessed with you and project, but I think this particular person, it's more that you've helped them, but they want to then take advantage of that. Or it's almost as though the act of needing to be grateful to you makes them resent you, something along those lines. So just be aware. I think Spirit's just saying at the moment, it hangs in the balance a bit around that for somebody. There's somebody around you, and it's like where you put your trust. Okay, so to finish off, I want to use the Astro Chakra cards for some last balancing energy for your second house, pile 2. Actually, I just got, it's really interesting, like the second house and the strength of all of this, you know, getting that when it's pile 2. Yeah, there might be something in that. Maybe the number 2 and angel numbers like 222 are important to you. All right, and the Astro Chakra cards are spirituality, well, that doesn't surprise me. A heart chakra. And the solar plexus power chakra. Okay, so first and foremost is your spiritual, the crown chakra, etc. And your communication and your contemplation is spot on, and communication with spirit well. So it's just confirming that. It's just confirming if you thought, am I kind of a little bit up myself and it's not really what I'm not really that. You are really all that. Pile 2. Your heart is important to connect with this. you can be so, I mean, with Aquarius, you could be a little bit detached, and you're so able to go into these. I think it is important for you to know that not everybody else is as strong as you, and that helps you help people rather than scare people, because part of the essence of you is in the caring that you have for the world and for people and so forth, because the sun is there in the fourth chakra. And then you have wisdom, which is good. So again, with these sort of energies, you would. In the solar plexus chakra, there's honor. So you will get the recognition. This is definitely saying you will get the recognition. I think the issue is how that plays out sometimes, whether people get scared of you or whether they get so in awe of you that you have fans that are a little bit over the top sometimes. But you definitely have the wisdom to deal with it, and you will be able to have the compassion and so forth as well to be able to deal with it. So I'm pretty confident for you around your second house, just as long as you understand the impact of your strengths and your intrinsic sort of spiritual strength in particular. So I hope that resonated for you, Polto. I hope it was helpful and that you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. And if you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear about it. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, Pile 3, to your reading. These cards are around the intrinsic values for your second house, and these are around the extrinsic or sort of more material and manifest outcomes for your second house. And you're a really interesting person in terms of the values around connection between people, around, I think, negotiation, around conflict resolution, around sort of counseling, therapy, any of those sorts of things. You love a redemptive arc with the Valkyries, and you're prepared to go into difficult situations to create better outcomes. You want a union between people, whether it's union in terms of romantic love, and some of you, your intrinsic values may be connected very much to a great love with the union card there. But I think for many, this is more about finding the points of union, the points of agreement with people, using a lot of wisdom that you have around how to take a conflict-based situation and create something really better out of it, and high degrees of empathy for others. And I do think for some of you, like, this is the classic sort of thing for a conflict resolution person, for a hostage negotiator, for any of those kind of things. There's a great depth and understanding, and it's intrinsic. You intrinsically value anything that brings about peace, harmony, resolution of issues, redemption of people. You have a very positive view about humanity. You would not look at any situation, even a conflict situation, in black and white terms. You wouldn't think they're the good guys and they're the bad guys. You have a very nuanced understanding about that sort of thing. And there's something intrinsic to you that is about that harmony. I wouldn't be surprised if you potentially had Libra in your second house. You don't have to, but there is a sense of the peacekeeper, the balance, the wisdom and so forth with that, with a great deal of empathy, which could also be Pisces or something like that. But you intrinsically value that which creates peace, harmony, connection between people, redemption, and coming out of the darkness into light and into greater sort of respect between people. That's intrinsically what pushes you. So if you were in a career or trying to manifest something which was all just about the self, or all just about the material outcomes, and it was without regard to the impact on others and to the harmony and to the balance of it, you would feel very disconnected. You would feel like extrinsically was not connected to intrinsic. Whatever you do extrinsically, and over here that could happen, you could end up in something where you're propelled because people see in you something with famous, before you know it, you're suddenly doing something that's not in harmony with that and seems to be more focused on you. So if that's the case, then you need to kind of recalibrate around that. But I think for many of you, you will become very well known for this ability. You will travel a lot about it. If you don't travel physically, then you're going to be connected across large sort of areas on planet Earth. You know, you'll be Zoom meeting with people internationally and all that kind of thing. But I think many of you will travel and move. This is why I'm getting a sense of things like hostage negotiators, conflict resolution people, peacekeepers, people who work for the UN, that kind of thing. There's something like that about you. but you'll be well known for it. That's part of it. And part of it is that you know how to present yourself. You know how to advertise, not in a cynical way, because you're not cynical at all, but you understand the capacity that you have in whatever area of your life. It doesn't have to be, as I say, as sort of big as the UN or a hostage negotiator. It could be a union delegate or a employee relations negotiator in a workplace, or it could be sort of someone who does marriage counselling, whatever it might be. You are able to promote yourself, and you will get very well known for being a great caregiver. Now, it doesn't have to be, as I say, that you're in a traditional caregiving role, but it is the care that you bring to things, the nurturing elements that you bring to things that helps with this. This is the empath. The empath and the caregiver are working together here. The empath intrinsically, that feels what other people feel, that looks out of the eyes of every other person on this earth, if you sort of, understand that spiritual allegory, is extrinsically becomes a caregiver in one form or another, but you will be very well known for it. If you are really maximising the promise of your second house, you will be well known for it. Whether, as I say, that's on the world stage or in a community or in an organisation, depends on what your ambitions are and so forth. But you know how to self-promote, but it's not cynical. You're not cynical at all. This is about moving forward, about achieving results and so forth. So I think there's actually quite a nice synergy between what you want intrinsically and how you're going to pursue it extrinsically. The next part of this reading is looking at a couple of other cards that were under the tarot, and that's about a bridge between the two. So it was sort of like if there was a conflict, how you might manage it. If it seemed to be in synergy, what else would help? So I think it's more for you that in whatever element your capacity to create empathy and union and concordance, which will make you well known and well travelled and so forth, it's what will actually build that a bit more for you. So we have sharing, and we have little owl and wisdom as light as a feather. Well, that's you all over here. This is the point. If you are very, very good, and you will be, at dealing with conflict situations, at finding the points where people can meet and agree rather than all the rest of it, then that is wisdom as light as a feather. You can come in and fix the situation. You've probably been able to do it your whole life. You were probably able to do it in the schoolyard with your friends when there was conflict going on. You know how to connect people and so forth. So that wisdom about that, the more that you take that into your extrinsic sort of thing and setting up your world, I think that in your world, in terms of material comforts and all of those sort of things, you want harmony. You want harmony amongst people, but you want also people to have a capacity to shine and to move forward. So if you were a parent, you would very much want your children to each have a very strong sense of themselves and to see themselves moving forward and being able to be confident, for instance. That's part of your caregiving. So there's all those sort of elements about the second house as well. But certainly wisdom, your wisdom does that, and your capacity to share. You are innately very generous. This is why this is not a problem over here. This is, if somebody was only interested in being famous, they would not be good at this because it would be all about them. But you are intrinsically driven by creating connections between people, and you only really go to this level of fame or advertising to achieve those ends and to keep things moving forward. So you're nicely balanced there. Okay, and that sort of fits really with coming to the cups. There's an emotional side around all this, but also I think an intellectual one as well too. So if you chose this because of the drawing to the deck that was about the cups, that shows that strong sense of love underneath all this, but I think there's also an intellectual side to this as well too. So let's ask Spirit where you're up to in your manifestation journey at the moment around the second house, and then we're going to ask for their advice about how to take that forward and travel to the future, which I think is what that card's showing. So where you are at the moment. Okay, all but one of the cards were reversed. So that says that you aren't yet taking this fully forward, I would say, or you may be on a bit of a hiatus. I think some of you do this automatically as work, but maybe you're sort of seeing this when you're don't have yet a battle to do, or you are just starting to understand one. Because with the Chariot reverse, that could suggest that you are in a situation at the moment, either personally or in your career or with people that you're dealing with, where there isn't the forward momentum at the moment. There's still some emotional stuff to be sorted through and let go of with the Eight of Cups reversed. That is a promising sign that it's reversed there. It says, again, that you can actually take that emotional energy out of it and just let it free. With the Empress reversed, some of you, there could be, because of the caregiver thing here, there could be with some of you that this has to do with, as I said earlier, how you would nurture and bring up a family. And so you may be suppressing your view of the world to let your children become more who they are, potentially, if that resonates. If it's not about you as the Empress reverse there, then I think it's, again, there's something about an environment that's a bit too harsh emotionally that you're going into to try and sort out. And where with the Magician reverse, there could be quite a lot of obfuscation and gaslighting and so forth. But with the Sun, I feel like you are more than able to shed the light on it. So that energy is working really well. But I think you're either, as I say, just starting on something, which is maybe something that you do all the time, and this is just another example of it, or you haven't yet fully got to the point of promoting yourself, which is also what the Sun could be about, around your capacity to deal with this. So it might be just something you're starting to realize about yourself. So let's ask Spirit for their advice. Okay, so firstly, Spirit is saying that your capacity to find harmony is part of your life path with the Sun, and you are, to the degree that you are starting to live that out and promote yourself in that way, you are doing precisely the right thing, and you will find better people and better connections. It's possible that at the moment there are people who are not really as pure of intent as you are, but you are going to be able to advertise, promote, get known, and bring in people who are better for you. So if you were someone, as I say, who did work in peacekeeping in some way, you're going to find other people who are genuinely with that. That will give you more courage. You are part of this ability, in a way, and this empathy, I think, could be, and you value it so much, is that you do feel a little bit uncomfortable with self-promotion, but it is important for you to be able to do it. So I think once you find the people who get you, you're going to feel more comfortable with doing that. There is definitely, with the Three of Wands and the Three of Cups there are definitely good people that can come into your life, but you do need to extrinsically own this. You do need to advertise and get out there and do something. You are being a little bit shy about it at the moment. The Star, it's don't give up hope. You are a shining light and a sense of emotional stability and fulfillment and those sort of things to other people. And if this, again, is about something to do with children and how you're going to nurture that energy in your children, then don't suppress some of the maternal guidance or paternal guidance, depending upon your particular role there, because don't be shy about that, because you have a lot to give. But I think it really is just saying that you are coming into a time where you're going to be able to promote yourself a bit more and get the recognition for this. So let's look at the other cards that were under the tarot card that brought you here. And these are from the Heart Code Oracles. And so they are meant to show, in this case I've used the Heart Code Oracles for lifestyle and for finance, because I think they're the two things that are most shown by the second house. So for finance, we get reward. Okay, so you're about to, I would say, get some form of reward financially for what you're doing. Maybe it is because you've advertised and you're bringing in new clients, for instance, or you've been doing so much wonderful work and keeping the peace and making people feel able to sort of move forward in a workplace that you're getting a performance bonus. But there's some sort of financial reward. It's also, I think, saying that the reward that you will have is by the fact that there is such a synergy between who you are intrinsically and what you will offer to the world. Also, maybe that famous thing, like the level on which you can make money out of this is probably a lot more than you think. In terms of lifestyle, we have relationships. So yeah, for you it is all about relationship, whether it's relationships at work, whether it's love relationships, whether it's relationships in families, communities, politically. you are going to, your lifestyle and who you are going to be is going to be intrinsically connected to relationships in one level or another. And I think many of you will have a rather peripatetic lifestyle. You will be moving around a lot to make those connections. So your lifestyle is connected to the connections that you make. All right, so let's have a look at some other characteristics that you have that might help you here. So we're starting first with some astrology. Okay, we've got the second house, and this is about the second house, so it's definitely saying this is very intrinsic. The second house is a very powerful house for you. We have Venus, which is about love, harmony, balance, beauty. And we have the third quarter, which is about the release. So out with the old and in with the new, using your discernment. This is, I think, whatever these repressed energies are here, I think it's time to sort of move forward. It's time to travel further with what you do. It's, if the old you did all this but did it behind the scenes without the recognition, it's time to actually claim your time in the sun, because what you bring is so valuable and is so much coming from love with Venus there. It's interesting too that Venus, the tarot card, is the Empress, and of course we had the Empress reversed, but I think this is saying when you start to release some of that shyness you have and that a kind of a little bit of a disconnect that you feel between it being all about you as opposed to being all about everybody else. It's like you are going to have to step into the spotlight to some degree to really fully manifest this, and you need to be comfortable with that because you come from the right place and you can balance those things with the second house there. So let's look at some other characteristics that might help you. Oceana, Played, and Violet. Okay, so Oceana may be, when it's talking about travel and so forth, it may be that you either come from Oceania countries, or you may travel there, or you may get a particular client base, or it may be in that sort of part of the world where you really start to get known. So Australia, Samoa, New Zealand, Fiji, Guam, Vanuatu, Tonga, and so forth. There's something about that area of the world that could be helpful for you in manifestation. There's an interesting type of astrology which you can get done by certain astrologers, which is called astrocartography, and it can actually show you how your natal chart connects with particular locations in the world and what ones are good for you and not good for you. I suspect if you had that done, you would find some really positive things around locations in the Oceania area. We have Played, independent, laid back, masculine, cozy. So I think this is really picking up being independent and that sort of sense, that kind of thing, but also being a bit laid back and okay with the fact that you're going to get known. I think you aren't going to lose yourself in the process of doing that. And with Violet, you're meant to be seen like the crown, royalty, but it's because you're compassionate, it's because you're sensitive, it's because you are a natural born leader that you are going to be seen. So own that within yourself. All right, so now we want to have a look at, because the second house is all about manifestation and in a sense our fortune in life, I wanted to use a couple of classic fortune decks to look at things that are both in your control and also those things that are more external. So I'm going to use Lenormand and Madame and Dora's fortune cards, and for each of them I'm going to do 2 cards for what's within your control and 2 cards for what's external. Okay, so internally we have firstly the Book and the Gentleman. The book is about learning. So I think that this is saying that for some of you, extra learning, extra education, extra research into whatever it is that you want to do and how you want to be in the world is going to be to your benefit. You have a lot of really natural ability, but you can even enhance it more through some form of research or learning. And there may in fact be a man around you or someone who identifies more with the masculine side of things, who can help you or teach you in some way. This may be a mentor. So you may have the control over choosing a mentor for the work that you do. There's certainly a sense, if that's the case, that they're going to say to you, be meticulous and patient. There's something more you can do. You can take this to another level, on some level, through more education and knowledge. And while you do it, it's not going to stop your success. You're safe from harm. There is a space for you to do that, and it is worth doing it. Over here, it may be that for some of you, and this might be why Venus has come up, that there is a love relationship that's coming in, because this is the external, or something like that. Or it could be that other people's love for you, and that's why there's potentially a famous element. And the sun, but it could be a great love. I wouldn't be surprised for some of you that the material outcomes of this also bring in the right person for you. If you have felt a little bit alone, your luck will soon change. If it's just that you felt a bit disconnected from what you wanted to do with your heart, your luck is soon going to change, and you'll receive news from afar. So this is this travel thing. I think that there are connections for you wider than your local community. Okay, so to finish off, I want to use the Astro Chakra deck for just 3 cards to give you some final balancing energy for your second house, pile 3. Okay, so firstly I'm going to go to the 2 solar plexus chakras, because they are about who you are and actualizing who you are. And it's very interesting because it's Jupiter and Venus. So it's like having Jupiter and Venus conjunct. So there is great wisdom that you bring to love and relationships in whatever form you do this, in whatever type of work or just the way you are with people. And your sense of self, which is the intrinsic side of things, is very wise and likely to be very honoured and seen, and it's all about empowering relationships in one form or another. The interesting thing is, again, I think for many of you, if you aren't already in an established relationship, there's something about doing this that is going to bring a transformative, wonderful relationship into your life. And it's like at that point, because this is the 4th chakra, the heart chakra with Pluto, at that point, that gives you a great sense of gratitude. Because I think that because you're so empathic, and you love the redemptive arc, as I say, you're very focused on helping other people get towards union. And you might have felt maybe that's your calling and you're not going to have that, but I think you will. So if you aren't in a relationship yet, I think there's something about actualizing, promoting and owning your right to be seen for the very great skills you have, that is not only going to turbocharge what you can do in the material world, but it's going to bring love in as well. So that's all very exciting. I hope that resonates for you, pile 3, and I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. And if you have any comments, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, pile 4, to your reading. So these cards are about the intrinsic values of your second house, and these cards are about the extrinsic or material outcomes of your second house. And I would have to say that you are people who are first and foremost sort of magical alchemist types. You are people who are all about understanding both the wood and the trees, understanding the macro and the micro. There is something scientific, alchemical, academic about you. In your core, you value the sense of magic and also the sense of the academic, intellectual or philosophical side of things, and things being in balance, things being in synergy and achieving through understanding those things. You are the sort of person who, if you were studying, would be able to take in a lot of information and synergize it because you understand the balance and the interconnection of things. You see the consequences of things very well. You actually manifest very well with Morgan Le Fay. There is magic around you, but it comes from an understanding. You are very, very much the big picture person, but you can get into the details when it comes to what that looks like in terms of achievement. You are achievement oriented. You are ambitious. You could have Aries in the second house. You could have Leo. But then equally, you could have something like Virgo or Libra, sort of for detail-oriented sorts of things. But it's both the macro and the micro. It's the natural magician. There's something like that in you, but it's understanding the world, and it could manifest in terms of science. It could manifest in terms of technology. It could manifest in terms of spiritual practice and so forth, or incredibly good academically. I suspect most of you have been very clever at school, possibly too clever at school for when you're, maybe it's later education that this real ability comes into being, because this is an ability that can see the detail and the context and synthesize them. And I think school often is more about retentive memory and just regurgitating what you're told. You are much more achievement focused, and you are much more balanced and far advanced. You're probably far advanced of many of your teachers in actual fact. So whether or not that caused you issues when you're at school, I don't know. Some of you may have been able to hide that a bit. But you are very, very, very smart and very, very, very magical. But it is, as I say, it's the as above, so below. It's the macro and micro. It's all of that sort of thing. It's the William Blake seeing the world in a grain of sand, or I can't remember the exact quote. In fact, you are very William Blake-like. If you don't know who William Blake is, maybe look him up, because you're very like him. And that's very much something that you value. Now, in terms of how it externally manifests in the extrinsic things, it is meant to give you power, authority in some way. I suspect you will be an authority figure about something that you know academically, something that you've developed. You are likely to be, whether it's, in your local level or even on the world stage, you are likely to be very much respected for the power of your knowledge and your capacity. You are significant on that level, and part of that is how you communicate. But the interesting thing is, you will be known to be coming from a higher self place. It's like power, but power with great ethical responsibility. I feel like it's more likely for most of you to be an authority figure on a topic or a subject or an expertise than it is necessarily to be a CEO or a political leader or something like that. I mean, you could be, but I feel for most of you it's more around that, because a lot of the time when people are perceived externally around being a CEO or, as I say, a politician, there's a sort of a sense that there's a lot that is very material around that, whereas you extrinsically take this knowledge and you connect it to your higher self and to the power that you have and to something that is very caring and nurturing for others. So there's something about what you do which helps others develop. Some of you may go from being brilliant academically to being a brilliant teacher, for instance. I'm also getting that for some of you, that you're part of a lineage, and you will also have children that take it forward as well too, like some genius family or something. But that's it. There's a mark of genius within this, and it is bringing you authority and communication power. People will listen to you when you speak, and as long as you always connect it back to this, that you don't end up saying, okay, I have power and authority, I'll kind of cut some corners to use communication methods that suit the great masses or whatever. Don't do that. Don't think, I've got to make something really simple if what you're talking about is complex, because you will get to the right audience, but you have to make the communication connect with that. Do not that's your one challenge here, that I think there's almost a temptation of being really seen as sort of like the lead on something, and whether you cut corners on that in terms of the detail to do that. It's probably about the only real challenge that I'm seeing at this point between them. Now, part of what was under the tarot card to bring you here is a couple of cards, like a bridge between the two. So I think it's really just to kind of work out how you manifest this power, authority through your communication, your caring for others and connecting to this higher self, so that nothing of this internal brilliance is lost in translation. So we have radical curiosity. Well, that's you all over, I would say. And Poseidon's daughter, you have been given everything you need. Okay, so I think this is Spirit saying what I was picking up there, which is that you aren't meant to change how you communicate. I mean, there's a certain degree when you communicate, targeting it to your audience, but there is a depth to what you are bringing that needs to find the right audience, and you have everything you need to do that. Don't feel that you have to change you. Don't listen to some marketing person who tells you that you have to have it all in, some sort of Twitter type kind of sentence or something. I mean, you can potentially use Twitter. I'm not bashing Twitter, but I'm saying like that you need to do the communication that is right for you and that connects this knowledge and synthesis that you have to the authority that you're going to have in the world or in your community or in your family or in whatever it is. And part of this is the radical curiosity. Always remain interested in this side of things. Always see the getting of wisdom, synthesis of stuff and balance as being the intrinsic value that drives you on, that curiosity, because just in that you're going to keep yourself up to date, you're going to keep yourself ahead of the curve. It's just going to happen naturally to you because it's what you really enjoy, and that will then create, it won't even be able to help communicating it to the world because it's going to be really obvious. Okay, so let's use the tarot to ask where you are up to at the moment in your manifestation journey for the second house, pile 4. This is interesting. A lot of the readings in this first line has come up with either all reversed or most of them reversed. And I think it's really picking up the core challenge that is in this type of reading around the second house in terms of how one moves from a well-defined intrinsic value, because that almost comes first, to the extrinsic way of doing it. And this suggests that you're in the process of working that out at the moment. It could be that you have some people around you. It could be parental figures with Queen of Cups reversed and King of Pentacles reversed, or it could be teachers or colleagues or something like that who are not really up to what you're up to. You know, there's a sort of sense that they're almost potentially lagging a bit behind. It might be why the communication was coming through and why it's important to keep that curiosity so that you don't. You do make sure that you're connecting what you do to the right audience. I'm getting that for some of you, you may not have quite the right audience for what you're doing at the moment. And don't give up. With the 9 of Wands reversed, it can be where you go, oh, well, look, this isn't working. There is something that you are working on. There is something that you've developed, you researched, or you're a line of inquiry that you're very curious about that really does have legs. It can go somewhere, but it looks like you don't have the right audience yet. And going back to your higher self and how you want to present yourself is important, and thinking about how what you bring nurtures others in some way, that is important. But don't give up. You don't have to make all your decisions yet. You're not at your full strength. There is time, I think, is what I'm getting for this at the moment. So let's ask Spirit. I think, like, you may, as I say, like if you're at school, you would have probably been ahead of your classmates and your teachers half the time, and you may still be on that particular trajectory. You're still in the process of finding where you're going to be recognised and where you are going to be the authority. But it's almost like you have to go through all of that, go through all the hurdles, the rites of passage and so forth to get to where you are then seen for what you bring to the table. So let's see what advice Spirit has for you about this. Okay. So firstly, with the 7 of Cups the right way up, I think it's sort of saying stay true to your dream and to what's intrinsic to you. And there are so many possibilities for you, so many things that you could do. Do not feel discouraged. I feel like I need to say this a number of times. Don't lose your curiosity. Don't feel that you have to dumb yourself down for other people or whatever it is. Like, you will find your people, but at the moment you haven't. So Spirit is saying that there are some connections, some environments that you've been in, some friendship groups you're in, I don't know what it is, it could be anything, could be even the workplace, where there isn't the emotional joy about this, because I think you're being made to sort of go by the rules and so forth. This sort of inquisitive, curious, brilliant mind is being straitjacketed a bit, and possibly in environments where strength is waned because of a bit of gaslighting and a bit of dishonesty. I am getting that for some of you, you probably threaten certain people that you're around, and they'll try and convince you that you're wrong or that you just don't get it or something, or in fact you get it far more than other people. But This is a kind of a rite of passage. This is a part of you understanding through what doesn't work and what the people that aren't the right audience for you and so forth, to be able to find the right audience. One of them is very emotionally critical and emotionally manipulative. So, and it could be in a friendship circle, I'm getting, with the Three of Cups reversed. It could be that you've got some frenemies who have enjoyed your curiosity and the way that you look at things, but they sort of feel like you're going to get ahead of them, and they may want to try and pull you back to some degree. But you are meant, in your second house, your extrinsic manifestation of this brilliance is meant to be out in the world as an authority figure. But maybe there's something very unconventional about you. It could be someone who is working very much in a spiritual alchemical field, and it's like modern day science. It goes, oh no, you can't have that, for instance. Or it could be that you're way ahead on something in the sort of like, technological world or whatever, that other people haven't even been able to understand yet, or they're scared of in some way. But your journey is from this brilliance and synergy into being an authority figure in something very new. So let's have a look at the other cards that were under the tarot card, which are from the Heart Code Oracles. And I've chosen one card from the Heart Code Oracles around finance and one from lifestyle, because I think they're the two kind of energies that most depict what happens in the second house. So firstly, finance. And it says patience. And I think that's probably true around everything. You will become an authority. You will make money. You will have the lifestyle that you want. You're not there yet. You are still dealing with people who are slower than you, who don't see what you see, something like that, or are far more conventional than where you're going. Even if it isn't that they're slower, it's just they're more conventional. But keep going with your radical curiosity. Keep moving towards that so that you can really... Yeah, you could be studying at university and doing your PhD at the moment, and keep going on your PhD even if your supervisor doesn't fully understand what you're doing. Like, just keep going, because you are meant to be an authority figure. Okay, and in terms of lifestyle, we have reasoning. Okay, I think this is a bit of a clue for you. I think it's a double-edged sword, lifestyle around reasoning. I think because you are very, very clever, I think that you think that you can reason and argue your way through things. And it might be with some of this repressed energy that you keep bringing your message to the wrong audience, or you keep being suppressed or censored or something, but you keep going because you think, well, I'm right, like, here's all the evidence, here's all the facts. Why don't facts matter? We argue that we live in a post-fact world at the moment, and there's some truth to that. So reason alone is not going to do it if you are talking to the people who cannot hear what you are saying. And understand that sometimes people who really get it are a bit scary to people who just like to have the sort of packaged information and feel secure, because you want to take things to the next level and so forth. But there will be other people. There are other people who are on that same emotional wavelength as you and spiritual wavelength as you. And when you get to those, your reasoning will have major power because they will see it. There's an interesting book by Daniel Goleman, who wrote the original emotional intelligence books. He wrote a book called Vital Lies, Simple Truths, and it talked about how in modern neuroscience, we know that if something causes us great anxiety, it can sometimes shut us down from even being able to be conscious of what's the information that's given to us. A bit like he used the analogy of, if you were in Africa on safari or something and a lion bit off your arm, all the endorphins and shock and everything would kick in to try and dull your actual conscious understanding of the pain and the injury at that time. He says that the preconscious can do the same thing with something that makes people very anxious. So I'm just getting that for many of you, you're around your wisdom and your truth. You don't have the right audience yet, and they're not going to be able to be got to through reasoning because they're just not going to hear it. They're just not going to hear it. But the right audience are going to get it, and that's where you're going to know you've got the right connections and so forth, and that you're communicating with the right people. And they're naturally going to see you then as an authority figure. Okay, so let's look at some other astrological energy to help you, pile 4. So we've got Pluto, waxing crescent, and 10th house. Yeah, 10th house again, like you're meant to be out in the world in some form. As I say, that's kind of your choice as to how big you go, but you are meant to be out in the world, and this genius is meant to be part of who you are in the world and your career and your vocation. It is ruled by the planet Saturn, so that is about sort of wisdom and maturity. So it may just be an issue of maturity, that it might be for some of you that some of your ideas are brilliant but still need to be matured. For others, it could be that the people you're around are not at your maturity level. But this is meant to be your career, your persona in the world in some way. With the waxing crescent mood, this is about setting your intentions. So I think this is the point now. It's like, who's your audience? What do you want to do? What do you want to be a world authority on? How do you set your intentions? Because you have the power of transformation. You are the alchemist, remember. You are the magician. So Pluto, when you set your intentions and you think about who you want to be in the world, that starts the transformation. You have pitched yourself way too low. You really, really have, powerful. So this is about starting to own your own power, that sort of Ra energy, and go through the transformation to do it. Let's see what other personality characteristics might help you. Goat, green, and spots. Okay. So firstly, goat is Chinese astrology. You may be born in one of those years. You might be the year of the goat. If not, the kind of qualities, and it can be either the goat or the sheep, depending upon what you're reading for Chinese astrology. But it's easygoing, empathic, creative, cheerful, a bit disorganized. I don't think that's really you. But maybe you are coming across that way. Maybe because you're so far ahead and it's so easy to you, people might just think it's too lightweight because it just comes so easy and naturally to you. So it might be just saying that you need to kind of make it look like there's a little bit more effort you had to put into getting there. Number one, that's going to help other people's egos. But number two, maybe they just need to see you having to sort of really knuckle down and hit the books. They might think that sort of natural genius just means being a little bit frivolous about it, and you're anything but I think you might be being misunderstood, I guess, is the message that I say. There is something about you that is coming from the heart. Definitely you're meant to make wealth, so that's good. And there's something about healing. So there's something healing in what you can do and bring to the world. But you do have to deal with, I always think with the spots coming up, the leopard can't change its spots, the people who can't shift with you, the people who are more routine and so forth. Some of them you're going to have to pay the piper with a bit, I think. And I'm again feeling like if you're in academia, it might be sort of some of the ones who decide if you get a PhD or whatever. And you do need to be able to show enough routine again so that they don't think you're frivolous, so they don't project that kind of thing on you. But equally, I think there will be a time where you go, as I say, a leopard can't change its spots. I need to find my right audience, and you will. So let's have a look at some fortune energy, because I think that the second house out of all the houses in astrology is probably the one that is most like the Wheel of Fortune or fortune energy. So I'm using a couple of more classic fortune decks here, the Lenormand and Madame Mendora's fortune cards. And I'm going to be doing 2 cards from each for each of what is going on internally that you have control over, and also what is happening externally that you don't necessarily have control over, but which is impacting on your second house at the moment. File 4. Internally. Externally. And internally. And externally. Okay. So internally, there's something about friendship with the dog card there. It may be that what's going on here is that some of the blocks that you're getting is your loyalty to your friends. And I don't think that you have to give up your friends, but you may have to understand that you need to move ahead of them, to take your ideas out and so forth. There's potentially a man around you or someone who has very male characteristics who may be a friend. There's particularly a point here. It may also be that for some of you, this is sort of like picking up internally. You're trying to decide about someone in your life as to whether they're just a friend or something more. And that's somehow having an impact on this as well in terms of where you're happy. Because it's interesting over here in the external, we have a house, which is sometimes about where you live and your living environment and so forth. And there's news coming around that. Some of you I'm getting may get news that you need to sort of move, move cities, move jobs, move something like that, move from something that's been stable to really move forward with what you want. But yeah, it could also be something to do with a relationship, and that's going to have an impact on this, and you starting to head more towards who you really want to be. Certainly internally, it is a long journey. You are beginning on a long journey, and being aware of that and knowing that's where the rewards are is good, and that you need to be very careful what you say. So again, there's like communication is going to be ultimately one of your strong suits, but it's also the point that you need to be aware of the audience, and you need to be aware about who to tell your truths and your understanding to. You need the right set of ears on it, basically. And there may be someone in your environment at the moment that you know that might be a clue to that. If that resonates, you'll know, because that's internal. Over here externally, you are going to be guided through any darkness around this, but you do have to be aware of who you trust. So again, I think there are some people who are jealous of you, who don't understand you, or who trivialize what you do because they think it came too easy. So, and I think if that's the case, you're going to hear about it and know about it. It may shift certain loyalties that you have, but you are going to be guided through it. So you are meant to get to this Ra energy, pile 4. So finally, to help you with that and to close out the reading, I'm going to just pull 3 Astro Chakra cards. Okay, so this is the root chakra. It's all about survival, about who you are at your base and so forth. It may connect to the house energy there. There's something really intrinsic about this that has to do with your self-esteem and who you really want to be in the world. And with Neptune there, it is saying ultimately there will be a reward for your inspiration. To not doubt that, as I think most of you are hitting a bit of a brick wall at the moment, but you will come through it. And part of it will come through spiritual contemplation, through thinking things through, and then working at Mercury, using a spiritual guide, and this is like the moon energy here, to tell you where and how to speak. Go to your inner voice for that, to understand that, and then you can communicate your originality, Uranus, with the 5th chakra or the throat chakra. So understanding how important really taking your place as an authority figure in what you're doing is to your sense of self, helps bring in the reward for what is inspired and individual in you. But when you're not sure about who and how to communicate with, go to your inner knowing, go to sort of spiritual connections, what the voice within tells you. Because as I say, you are the alchemist, you are the magician, you are connected, definitely, and that will give you the guidance that you need. So I hope that resonates for you, pile 4, and I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe if you haven't already done so. And if you care to share in comments, I'd love to hear about it. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings.